You're listening to Innovators by bcjobs.ca, Western Canada's largest job board. This podcast is about innovative companies with a focus on people. What sets them apart in terms of their leaders, company culture, and future outlook? As a business leader, what can you do to encourage innovation? As a recruiter, what can you do to adopt an innovative corporate culture? And as a job candidate, what can you do to stand out?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Simon, and I'll be your host for today's episode with Jesse Dallon from Piranha Games. Piranha Games is a PC gaming developer based here in Vancouver. Prior to Piranha Games, Jesse spent some time at Cupcake Digital as the human resource manager and also a senior recruiter at GTech. She's been in the gaming industry for almost 20 years now, so I'm going to stop introducing you now, Jesse, and I'll throw it over to you. What brings you here today, and tell us a little bit about your background in gaming.
Hi, Simon. Thanks for having me. Yeah, actually, it's really kind of comical because my career in gaming was an accident. My career in human resources was also an accident. I actually studied biology in university and had been working for the New Brunswick Museum, and I was young and misdirected and decided to move to another city. And in searching for a job, I got picked up by a tech startup that had a game development team, and everything kind of launched from there. I remember the owner of this organization walking over to my desk and looking at me saying, "You have a music background, don't you?" Dropping a box of sound effects and a copy of SoundForge on my desk and saying, "Figure it out." So that's kind of what kicked off that. As I moved on, I started hiring for my own projects. I spent some time in a market research company where really kind of kicked off my experience with training and recruitment. I moved into GTech. They're now known as IGT. That's a developer in the lottery and slot machine space. And I recruited quite a few people for them globally, actually, not just in Canada. So that was great experience. And one thing led to another, and I just stuck with the HR field because I quite enjoyed the administration of these companies and I really liked the business. So yeah, planned none of it, but here I am.
What do you like about HR?
You know what? I really think it's the people component is the big thing. It's funny because one of the things that I've realized during COVID is that when you take that kind of social component away from me, my job is not nearly as fun anymore. So I've had to make great strides to stay in touch with people and maintain that communication. So I got that sense of personal satisfaction and connection with people, but also the administrative and kind of the technical back end of it. I really enjoy human resources related systems. I really enjoy the problem solving aspect. I am a detail oriented person and task oriented person at heart. So, that administrative component, checking the list and implementing systems and paying attention to these details is actually quite satisfying for me. And I've always had a very strange sense of satisfaction with creating order where there is none. So I think I gravitated towards that a great deal.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, like you mentioned, you spent more than 4 years actually at GTech, and then another 4 years now here at Piranha Games. Is it just by chance that you stayed in the gaming industry, or is that sort of an industry that you started creating a passion for?
Yeah, I mean, after my first job in the gaming business way back when in the early 2000s, I'm aging myself now, but I really enjoyed that. I was actually laid off. That company was acquired and they dissolved the game development team. A number of my colleagues went off and started another organization, actually, which is still operational today in the casual game space. So that was fantastic. I decided to finish up some school, correspondence, and then take some time and took a job in the market research industry. And that's where I got my initial HR experience, as I said. So that was good for me. But as soon as I had the opportunity to go back to some form of gaming development, I did. And I've been ever since.
For those that are listening and not really familiar with Piranha Games, they are based locally, but can you tell us a little bit about maybe the history or a little bit of info about Piranha Games?
Yeah, so Piranha Games is a relatively kind of small to mid-sized PC console game developer here in Vancouver. We were founded in 2000, so we just had our 20-year anniversary this past January, which is very exciting. We operate in the, I guess, first person shooter and action based genre space. Those are the types of games that we make, and our staff, that reflects this is their area of interest. So it's a really good group of people we have contributing to that. Yeah, the company was founded by three gentlemen back then. One of them is still the CEO today.
Wow. First person shooters. What are some of the big titles that you guys have worked with?
Most recently, we released the latest installment to the MechWarrior series, which was MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. That was a single player versus environment product that came out in December. It was really exciting. There's some videos that you can watch on YouTube of that if anyone has any interest. Prior to that, we did release MechWarrior Online, which was the online free-to-play version of the MechWarrior series. And that had been the first time that anybody had resurrected this IP in a really long time. Other things that we'd worked on in the past were, some titles you may have heard of, and we made a few. This was before my time with the company, so forgive me. I believe there was a couple of hunting products that we made. So yeah, it's always been in that kind of, action-based space from what I know.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, gonna throw you a curveball here, the first curveball today. The name of the podcast is Innovators. I'm curious, from in a gaming world or anywhere, how do you define an innovator? What does that mean to you?
Well, could mean any number of things. You could be innovating in terms of your product, coming up with new and exciting concepts, new ways of actually delivering these concepts as well. So how you go about building them, you could be innovating in terms of process. You could be coming up with new ways or new technical innovations to actually be able to, AR and VR are really good examples, even though I'm not personally a huge fan of VR. It still makes me a little bit cyber sick, but really good examples of technological innovations that people have come up with that, in recent past. So, I mean, you could also be innovating from the operational side. For instance, us in human resources, when it comes to kind of the systems that we've implemented or ways of doing things, you can innovate from your project management methodology. There's any number of ways to do this in the tech world. So
How large is your company now?
right now, I actually did already just answer this question today. We're probably about 63 people.
63. Wow. Has the last 3 to 4 months, due to COVID, has that number changed? And what are you looking forward to in the future?
Well, we've actually been hiring pretty aggressively because we do have a new project in the works that requires a little bit more staffing than what we've had in the past. So we're adding to our core group of staff. We did have a few people as we finished a project last year. We experienced some natural attrition that's tied to that. And we've replaced those people. And now we're building additional teams and some in-house expertise that we're lacking for this current project on top of it. With that, we've also, created some new opportunity for staff that had been there in terms of technical leadership roles and supervisory positions. I can honestly say that this is probably the most active period that I've seen in terms of hiring and promotions that I've seen in this company for the past couple of years. So it's a very exciting time for us.
Wow, that's very exciting. It's a great segue. We were talking earlier about some of the people in your company, and they've been around for, some of them have been around for close to 20 years, right? So I wanted to shift gears and talk a little bit about the people. The most successful leaders are always talking about the importance of people and how nothing could have been done without a select group of people. When it comes to people within your organization, Piranha Games, how do you approach managing people? And more specifically, how do the leaders within your organization encourage continuous innovation? Because I assume in the gaming industry, you're constantly innovating and creating new ideas.
Yeah, I mean, well, the cool thing about us is that we are a results driven organization in terms of how we manage performance. So we're not necessarily looking for people to, I guess, how can I put this best? It's really about what people can come up with. So everybody has the opportunity to make a key contribution as an individual stakeholder to a project because, they're very likely brilliant because we really like smart people to work for us. But there's a lot of opportunity in a smaller organization to be involved in multiple facets of a project, really, and we do encourage that versus where you may be in a very large organization, which I have been in the past. You're kind of in a department and it's very structured in terms of what you're going to do, and you're not necessarily moving around or exposed to certain things. So, highly collaborative with us. If somebody has a good idea, they do have the opportunity to bring that forward and potentially execute on it.
Cool. Yeah, you talk about collaboration. That's very interesting. I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into that. How do the team structures at Piranha Games look like? You mentioned some of the bigger companies you worked for were not as collaborative. You're one small piece in a bigger organization. How is the team structure at Piranha Games?
Team structure at Piranha Games is relatively flat, to be honest. We do have managers in every department, and we do have some technical leads or supervisory levels within departments, depending on how large that subgroup is, because obviously one person can't deal with the functional management of a ton of people. It's just not possible. Our managerial staff is still involved in the technical production of everything, like they do hands-on work as well, right? So this allows them to relate very well to what's going on. They're not removed from the process. They're actively contributing to the projects, but at the same time, that doesn't leave them a lot of time to do things like, you know, vacation approvals, performance reviews, day-to-day check-ins, those types of things. So, we do have some supervisory levels within the larger groups as well. Outside of that, there's a production manager we have that kind of oversees all of that. We're hiring a producer right now to move in with that and help manage these projects as well. It's really actually quite simple. And within projects, we do have some technical leads as well. And the technical leads may or may not necessarily be supervisors or managers, but may be technical subject matter experts that we want actually in leadership roles from the project perspective.
That's really cool. You used the word simple. We were talking earlier, and you said that Piranha Games is not really a fancy company, but you know what? Sometimes these companies are the most innovative and the most fun to be at.
Yeah, I say that, and I don't at all mean it in a bad way. Actually, I like that we're not a terribly, fancy corporate lofty organization. I like that it's kind of grassroots and we're a little bit gritty. That facilitates our kind of free flowing communication and really allows people to be creative and collaborative because they can be themselves. And I can't take any credit for this. I walked in the door and Piranha Games was like this. I haven't I can help cultivate this company culture, and I can certainly protect the cultural integrity of this organization, but this is who they were. And, just to give you a little bit of idea of this, when I first moved to Vancouver, I found it to be a really difficult move. It was also November and pouring rain, and I was living downtown and I didn't know anybody. And I thought, oh, okay, am I going to like this? I'm from the Maritimes where it's very, very, social, even with strangers. So I thought, oh, all right, what am I going to do? And I took this job at Piranha Games. And honestly, it was these people and this company that made me want to stay here. And now I couldn't be happier. So they actually have complete credit for that.
That's amazing. So, what is the corporate culture like? You mentioned very good word you used, cultivating the corporate culture. There's oftentimes is the leaders that develop this culture, and it's up to the HR team to continue cultivating it and facilitating this culture. What does it look like there for people that aren't really aware of what it might be like working at Piranha Games?
Yeah, as I said, I'm not responsible for this at all. It was what it was when I got there, but casual is a good word. Like most games company, we're not terribly corporate. We are not terribly formal. Our dress code consists of wear pants kind of thing, right? Like we really encourage people to be themselves, and and that's because we have a very smart, competent group of people working with us that understand how to behave appropriately in a work environment and what's acceptable and what's not. So obviously we do have some policies in place within reason, but people are really encouraged to speak relatively freely and to interact with each other as they see fit. And it does allow for a really strong creative process from what I can see. Sometimes not always, that there's always disagreement. The nice thing about being able to be yourself is that you can get through those as well.
So, I can imagine there are a lot of bonding through games. Is there a lot of gaming happening within Piranha Games?
There is. So we do have a game hour, which I think was probably more prominent when we were in the office and people were sitting down between 5 and 6 to actually, play a game online. Some of our people would sit down and play some kind of tabletop RPG together. Battletech, obviously a popular one because we were working on the MechWarrior series. Our QA department, it was very inclined to use foosball tables, and we'd see a lot of people engaging in that. Really, probably our biggest social event would be our Beer Fridays, which would happen once a month. Everybody gets together, has the opportunity to give each other some kudos over things their coworkers have done that they appreciate. And really, we just kind of hang out and shoot the breeze and have a couple of beer in the office, which is really nice on a Friday afternoon. Also, we typically have one very large year-end event. And it does tend to be a business event. Like this past year, we had the MechWarrior 5 launch party. 2 or 3 years prior to that, each year we'd had a MechCon, but our staff obviously comes to that. They have VIP passes, they get their own bar, it's catered. So we do throw a little bit of a staff party as well.
Wow, sounds nice. With social distancing now and COVID, how do these beer Fridays look like?
Well, they're on Zoom, which is really entertaining to see 60 something people on Zoom. But it does work. And it is. And I think the thing that I found most entertaining about this is, how on Zoom you can kind of substitute out your backgrounds with whatever you want. So, I really like seeing inside people's houses. That's exciting for me. See how the other side lives. But also some of the backgrounds people come up with is quite entertaining. So, we also maintain a couple of like water cooler chat Slack channels so people can, post and share and do whatever they like in there. And actually, I'm going to plug a really cool tool, which, I love and hate all at the same time, that we recently purchased for a number of reasons. A, to continue facilitating kind of communication while we're all stuck at home and not in front of each other. And B, for things like our focus groups internally and our playtesting groups and things like that is a tool called Thought Exchange. It is an anonymous feedback, literal thought exchange kind of polling tool, and it's got some very interesting AI and some interesting functionality. The reason I say I love it and hate it at the same time is because I love what it facilitates, but occasionally when you have anonymous tools, people speak very freely, and sometimes it can be difficult to read that type of feedback, right? So, yeah, it's been very, very helpful and really, really neat. So I encourage anybody who is looking for this type of kind of internal polling tool. It has a really cool presentation component to it as well to check out Thought Exchange. It's a really supportive bunch of people that work there as well.
Interested, curious. As an innovative company, of course, you want the best candidates to join your company. How does the recruitment process look like at Piranha Games? How do you ensure and recruit to ensure that you continue to steer the ship towards the right direction?
Yeah, so it's funny because not much of this has changed for us since we've retreated to our living rooms to carry on our business. We are actually recruiting in the exact same way we always have. So you can apply for a position online, or perhaps one of us will reach out to you, or you'll be referred by a friend. There's typically a couple of interviews involved, either done by phone or over video conference. For certain positions, we have testing, obviously. These are all done online as well and can be administered online and remotely. And then after that, our typical process is just, a reference checking and then an offer. So there's nothing really groundbreaking going on here other than that we have some interesting testing utilities, which are kind of exciting for me. Anyway, I don't know that anybody taking the test finds them exciting, but I do. I like them. But outside of that, in terms of ascertaining fit to the organization, I think the biggest thing that I try to do is really, tell people about what we are so that and determine, and rather than determining who is the best fit for us, determining who is going to be happy working with our group of people. Because, not every company is everybody's cup of tea, right? I certainly have worked in organizations where I've been happier than other organizations. I think, my job at Piranha Games is the happiest I've been in a number of years, but that's easy to say when you work in a video games company. I'm lying. I liked all my jobs, but yeah, that's really the kind of the approach that we take rather than thinking of it, who's going to fit in with our culture, more thinking about it and discussing it as a group, like, which of these people do we feel would be happy working here? And, something that's really been on our radar lately, because we're not necessarily going out and doing all of the recruitment events that we would normally do in person, like the job fairs or things of that nature. We are actually, because we're doing a lot of this online, we're really kind of trying to tap into, I guess, more diverse applicant pools. So we've expanded our search nationally, internationally, compared to what we had in the past. Also, looking at more diverse groups and really, really focusing on the diversity component of our recruitment process, because we do know that there are some underrepresented groups in the tech sector, and we'd like to kind of, I guess, remove some of those barriers. So I can't speak to a lot of that because we do take some steps already, but it's an area that we're looking in and hopefully looking at even closer as time moves forward, so that we can kind of tap into some of these groups that may not necessarily be that encouraged to join our industry, and hopefully encourage them more.
You mentioned nationally and internationally, expanding to those areas. Does that mean you are looking to hire outside of Vancouver?
No, everybody has to come to Vancouver eventually. It's not necessarily such a rush right now because we are working remotely for the time being. So people can relocate at their leisure, which is really good. It's just rather than just recruit from the Vancouver market. And I'm from New Brunswick, so I have a lot of experience with this because there's not that many people in New Brunswick. So you have to kind of go outside the region sometimes. Just casting that kind of nationwide net in terms of our recruitment efforts, and even looking at people from international markets as well, because certainly Vancouver is very diverse and lots of people come here. So why not more?
BC Jobs, we recently hired a junior developer, also from New Brunswick, Moncton.
Oh, really? Well, that is where I spent most of my adult life, was in Moncton, actually.
So yeah, I totally understand you're now shift over to more international and national candidates. I think that's a very good initiative that you guys are rolling out.
Well, and it's not that we ever really didn't look at candidates from other areas. It's just we have a little bit better opportunity to right now. A, because of the amount of people that we're hiring, but B, because of the current climate. And I walked into recruiting this year very, very nervous, going, I've never recruited in a pandemic before. I don't know what to do. Is this going to work? Is it not going to work? Am I going to spend money on this initiative and it's going to go okay? And then how do I figure out where to find these people? So, fortunately, as I said, not a whole lot has changed. But yeah, we do have a little bit more opportunity because there's no huge push on timelines for relocation. Whereas, often it's like hire somebody and we need them in the door 2 weeks later. Well, if we're working from home, that's fine. They have a lot more time to do that. So that facilitates things like relocation timelines, immigration timelines, things like that.
So you don't have to tell me this, but have you hired anyone internationally or nationally yet outside of Vancouver?
Yes, we have. In fact, let me go through my list here, because I am getting older and going slightly senile, and I need to write things down if I want to remember them. So we've had one person from Alberta, one person from Ontario. We potentially have another person from Ontario and another from California right now. The rest were all of local from Vancouver. So
Wow, cool. So it looks like a lot of growth in the horizon. Curious, what does the next 4 to 5 months look like for your company? You mentioned a couple of games that are in development currently. You don't have to mention any of the games that maybe some cool initiatives that you're really looking forward to.
yeah, I mean, it's funny because the cool initiatives for us usually are the products, which anybody in game development will know when you're at certain phases of them, you can't say anything about, because it's the undisclosed title at this point in time. But yeah, we actually for the first time in a very long time will have multiple things on the go at the same time. So that's exciting for us, which is why we've had to increase our staff, right? Also, everything's a learning experience, and we did learn over the course of our last project that we did lack some expertise in a couple of areas. So we're closing those gaps as well, adding to kind of our production team to kind of manage these multiple things that are going on. So for us, that means more hiring, and it means more internal opportunity as well for staff who may want to move around or try something new or take on some leadership responsibility. And that has probably been the most exciting thing for me, because I feel like I've been planning for this day for 4 years.
Now, due to COVID, a lot of people are staying indoors, of course. It's kind of been opening up, right? The restaurants are opening up here locally and even around nationally. But do you think the COVID and the fact that we're doing social distancing, do you think that has resulted in all these new projects for Piranha Games, or is that completely unrelated?
It's unrelated. We were on our way to doing this anyhow. It threw a bit of a monkey wrench in our plans because, one of the things we've pulled this off fairly well. I had actually been out of the office for a couple of weeks and I would gone back to the office beginning of March. And then 2 days later, we exited everybody out of the office again. So it was like, okay. And we were not a company that did a whole lot of telecommuting at that point in time. So we had to turn on a dime and implement all of the necessary infrastructure and come up with some of these additional policies and ensure that our communication was there with staff. And honestly, some of it's still not perfect, but it went really well. Some credit there, to our administrative team and our operations group and our IT manager that pulled that all off so quickly. So we were really excited that happened, but there is obviously, not all working from home situations are created equal. There may be people with multiple roommates and that's disruptive. There may be people with children and that's disruptive because, kids don't understand that if you're working and you're home, that you're actually working, right? Because they're young. So there's been some challenges. There's some people that have been performing or overperforming working from home because they no longer have the commute to worry about. As you know, when you live in a metropolitan area like we do, sometimes there's a significant commute depending on where you live. So that's been really neat. Some people, they struggle to work from home because they do better when they have kind of that in-person follow-up or a certain tool set around them or certain equipment around them. So there have been all kinds of challenges, but we've managed to work through most of them and are continuing to. I read a report today in some publication talking about how most game companies have seen a decrease in productivity. I'm sure we have as well, but we're managing. So overall, not a bad experience. The one thing I can say is, just talking about our company culture is that a lot of people miss each other. Like we really do enjoy being in each other's presence. And I speak for myself when I say that as well. And it's really unfortunate that we don't have that interpersonal interaction that we used to. Our office is open on a voluntary basis, so people can come and go. We have policies and the appropriate measures have been taken to make it safe. But, I've popped in a couple of times myself, and I'm always so happy to see people, even if it's from 6 feet away.
It's fascinating how quickly us as humans adapt, though, right? Piranha Games and a lot of different companies had to adjust and turn on a dime. This whole thing, this whole lockdown, everything happened so quickly. And so many companies, your company included, had to transition very quickly. So, I mean, it's very fascinating to see.
Well, and some organizations, already had, really solid telecommuting strategies because it was something they allowed as a benefit for their staff. And it just, how we worked, that was never it. So for us, it was kind of new. And at least we were able to do that, but I'm sure we weren't alone in doing that.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you another question here. It's going to be a little bit unrelated, but, let's say COVID were to last for another year, 2 years, maybe even three. How would your life adapt? And do you think we would make it?
Define we.
We, as in, well, us as people, we all want to be social, and if that's 2 or 3 years of social distancing and not being in the office, do you think people are just gonna suddenly go back into the office just because we miss each other, or how do you think the world would look like?
Well, and no, even now, people are not just going to suddenly go back in the office because they miss each other, because there's a huge psychological impact that's occurred from our current scenario. And I'm certainly not a subject matter expert here, but I've been reading a lot of material and I've been attending a lot of webinars and I've been really trying to get my head wrapped around, some of the anxieties that people might be feeling and some of the backlash, or I guess some of the impact that there may have been in terms of people's mental wellness because of this, because we have had to adjust. I honestly, whoever came up with the phrasing new normal needs to go away because it's not normal. It's horrifying what we've had to go through. And I mean, we've managed and we're surviving, but it's scary and it was a significant amount of change. And one of the biggest things that I personally have felt is that, okay, so I've just settled in. to working from home. I've just gotten used to this. I've just gotten used to the line at the grocery store. I've just figured out how to maintain a workout schedule in my living room, and now stuff opens up. And the fact that I was looking at having to change again was awful for me. And I wasn't alone. I had this conversation with a former colleague of mine back in New Brunswick, and she said the exact same thing. So, I try and think about how other people are feeling, and likely it's the same way. And, I wasn't living in fear the first time around when this happened. I just followed the directions and stayed home and did what I needed to do. But I'm sure some people that, may have underlying health issues or may have family or perhaps family that were essential workers, they may have felt very differently. So there's so many factors to consider. And I'm trying to be very, very mindful of this. So no, I don't think that people can just kind of walk back in the office. Some of them might be able to. A lot of people won't be able to for a wide variety of reasons. Ask my boyfriend. I've lost my mind on several occasions. So no, if this went on for another few years, I don't really know what would happen. I might weigh 300 pounds and, from having eaten cookies every day for lunch, I might be drinking gin at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Or you might get really fit from all your home workouts.
Oh, it might be good. So, but it's been up and down for a lot of people, I think, and it's definitely not sustainable, but we have to do what we have to do, right?
Yeah, very well said. Well, I'd like to open the floor for you now, Ashley, to just say whatever you want. It could be a cool initiative or campaign that Piranha Games has in the works. It could be something you're doing personally or in collaboration with another organization. The floor is yours.
Actually, you know what? When I was talking about recruiting and how we're trying to tap into some kind of new resources and markets, I've been doing some really rewarding work with an organization with the YWCA known as Tech Connect. And their role is to take or to provide mentorship to newcomer women and helping them break into the local tech sector. So I've been working as a mentor with them for a couple of months now. And I did a speaking engagement for them as well. And that's been a really fantastic group of people to work with. And I'm learning a lot and I really appreciate it. See, this is some social connection that I had, even though it was online, meeting some new people, So I was really excited to get involved there. So anybody, if I speak to other women in the industry that are interested in getting involved in this type of program, it's an excellent program and they should look into it.
What was the name of that program again?
It's the YWCA Tech Connect program.
Tech Connect. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll leave that there for now. For everyone that has tuned in, thank you so much for listening. And until next time, take care, be safe, and consider checking out YWCA's Tech Connect program. Thanks so much for joining us today, Jessie.
Thanks, Simon.
Hello, everyone. This is Simon, Vice President of bcjobs.ca. BC Jobs is used by hundreds of recruiters and over 200,000 candidates per month. We also run career fairs to help support the jobs market. We regularly run career fairs both in person and virtually, with up to 400 candidates per career fair. Visit bcjobs.ca to discover jobs locally and remote.